Well, hello, Bex. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's a beautiful day in Ogden, Utah today. So,
Ah, that's where you are.
yes, ma'am.
Awesome. What are you doing out there?
Well, I moved here right after Christmas, so I've only been out here
Wow.
for a couple of months. My partner's family lives out here, and he has a bunch of brothers and sisters all around the same age range. So it's kind of like having a big friend group. It's a great community
Wow.
out here. And after the hurricane in Asheville, we needed some emotional and financial reboot respite out here. So,
Oh my gosh, I can only imagine. It's funny. We talked to a wonderful guy who works for Best Tile up in North Carolina, and he flies a plane, so he did a lot of airlift for
mhm.
rescue and supplies and stuff during that. I still can't even believe what happened
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah, we did a lot of disaster relief with Southeastern Tile.
Oh, you did.
They ran a bunch of goods and peeps with planes out of their warehouse and stuff. So very grateful for
Incredible.
how the tile industry showed up for all of that, honestly.
Absolutely. I mean, it's funny. And doing this podcast for almost a year now, I've met so many people, and they keep saying the same thing over and over again. There's just this interesting family dynamic within the tile industry. No matter what part of it you're in, there's some family aspect to it.
Totally. Yeah, I was honored enough to get to attend the all female CTI that happened down in Florida, and um met 14 of the most incredible women I've ever met before, and it was definitely like that. The support, there wasn't a spirit of any type of competitive nature at all. We were all just trying to help each other out, and I felt that from industry leaders as well as everyone that came together to put that event on. It was really cool to be a part of.
That is awesome. What all did you guys end up doing at that event? I'm curious about that.
Oh man, well, we did Shannon Huffstigler did the Schluter business class, the Mind Your Business course with all of us, which was
I love the
cool.
name of that.
Yeah, it was great. I learned a ton. I'm actually using a lot of what I learned right now, even though it's for a slightly different project. But
Hmm.
um and then we spent the rest of the time doing dinners with everyone. We got to know each of the different people that were there. Um, Jeremy Sachs was there, and
He's awesome, isn't he?
yeah, and Brad, and um, then we went over and set up and did our orientation, and then we did the CTI exam on International Women's Day, and
I
then
love
everybody
it.
headed out the next day. We went out to a celebratory dinner and got back on the road.
That's amazing. I'm just so excited to have you on this podcast because one of my goals was I've got to talk to someone who women in tile because it's just such an amazing organization and an offshoot of NTCA, and I'm excited about that. I love to see that enthusiasm for that industry, and so I'm excited to have you here to talk a little bit more about your journey with tile. So, I want to start at the beginning. How did you get involved with this?
Well, so I worked in the mental health field for 9 years, and I was working I was the director of a residential treatment center and partial hospitalization program for women. And they got rid of the program director position at all three campuses. And so I kind of had this blank slate I was looking at, and I ended up selling everything and buying a camper and moving onto a farm. And I've been grinding, I mean, 60 to 80-hour work weeks for like
Wow,
9 years. Like
that's a
I
lot.
went real hard in the mental health field, just in like working multiple jobs at one time, doing school, all of those
Mm.
pieces. And so I experienced in my personal life some pretty acute compounded grief the year leading up to being laid off. And I was like, I'm going to go live on this farm and I'm going to drink coffee with goats, which is really funny because I don't think I ever drank coffee with goats. And like 2 weeks in, I was already like business minding. I'm just not a drink.
Ah,
I discovered I'm not a drink coffee with goats person. So I was in the transition, I had already planned a trip out to California, and I was out in California, and I got this random call from a number I didn't know, and he said he was on the farm I moved on to. He was renovating the cabin that's on the property, and asked me if I wanted to learn how to lay tile. He needed some help. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And then like 2 weeks into laying tile, I was completely in love with it. Like I was researching tile through the centuries, how it's changed, what best practices are. Like I knew about the fact that like NTCA and CTEF existed like at the beginning, because I was like, okay, so how do you do this in the best possible way? And like I think the dream of Sirens of Ceramics, which was the tile company that I was working towards when I went out to Florida and for the past couple of months before I kind of shifted courses slightly, I think a month in, I was like, okay, all female tile business. Like, how fun would that be? Well, I think when I was originally talking about it, I was like, we'll have like matching Carhartt overalls with fun patterns on them. You know, that'd be
that's
cute.
fun.
Like, who doesn't want a bunch of awesome ladies doing their trade work? You know,
Exactly.
No shame in the game, but I think it's nice having feminine energy in your house. And so that was what I had been working towards for the past year and a half. So I finished an apprenticeship with that guy, and his name is, he goes by 13, but it's Lucas Waller, and he's been in the trades for like 25 years. And he not only taught me, he downloaded his whole brain to me. Like he really invested in me super hard. Like he gave me a huge breadth of information, not just in tile, but like kind of kitchen and bathroom remodels start to finish. And then I went to go work for a female-owned construction company for a little while that it just wasn't tile, and it wasn't what I wanted to be doing. And so I actually met Mike Manis of iTile, and I worked with him for a little while. And after the hurricane, we needed to move out here. And so I have not been in the industry long. I think I was the youngest in years of experience, I believe, by like 9 years at the CTI exam. So I was like an infant baby tile installer in a sea of just incredible humans. I was joking about how it felt like I pulled my chair up to the table and it was like squeaking on the ground. Like I was like, hi. But it ended up being exactly what kind of set the fire in me going down there for kind of how things have evolved. So I think it was where I was supposed to be, regardless of you know, those connections I've made and kind of how all of that went, because actually I aced my written, like got a 99. I studied for months. I studied so hard. I practiced so many things getting ready for that. I was like coming in confident, and I just bombed the physical. I mean, like freaked out, like started doing things poorly, got out of my flow state, freaked out, panicked, and then just like everything was kind of downhill from there. And I was like, I'm a very, what does this mean type of person.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, well, it means I'm not ready for the physical part of this test. This is an extremely hard test. They've done an excellent job of really covering all the baselines of like, the physical part is your muscle memory, how fast you can go, and how efficient, how beautifully and to the letter you can go while you're doing those things, right?
Yeah.
So when you're a baby in the field, like I'm slow, right? Like when I'm done, it is to like CTEF letter, right? But I'm slow. So I was trying to speed up my process at a rate that it just couldn't hang, you know?
I hear you. And you know, it's a difficult thing. That's the one thing I've come to learn in the short time I've been learning this, is just it's so tricky. It's unlike any other substance you're going to put down on your floor or where else you're putting it, backsplash or shower or whatever, because of the way it has to be done, the precision.
Right.
And it's craft and it's art. So, I mean, you know, there's a lot of components going on here. So I totally get that.
Well, and I was just deeply humbled, and I was like, okay, because the reason I was starting Sirens of Ceramics so early on in my career was
Mhm.
because my partner's been in the field for 15 years, and
Oh.
he's been doing tile and full kitchen and bathroom remodels for like on his own for 5 years, but
Mhm.
under mentors and GCs for 10 years before that. And so his brain fills in all the other gaps that mine was missing,
Mhm.
right? So,
Yeah.
but I'm the business lady. So I was like, I'm going to handle all the P's and Q's, you know, and he'll make sure when we're on site that my breadth of experience, where my lane ends, he knows the rest of the things, right?
Yes.
And yeah, so I think I was what I learned there in the Mind Your Business class, and the inspiration being around all the ladies, and then coming
Mhm.
back, I'd been networking with the Utah tile community for months, like since December. And so I'd already started meeting some of the major players in Salt Lake, and getting to know some of the tile peeps in Ogden and my local shops, and all of that networking. I was so excited to start a tile company out here. Like, that was the plan. And I still love tile. Like, I am so excited to incorporate tile into what I'm doing in the industry. Like, uh I love the platform jump off that it's been for me.
Mhm.
Um and just think that it's so unique in the way that it is takes 25 steps for it to be done really, really well. Every tile job's kind of like a hero's journey, where it's like
That's a
there's
great
this
way to put
moment where
it.
like things are drying, or this is happening, and like there's like this peak, and then you land into it being beautifully completed. And it works really well for someone who's been in the mental health field to move into that style, because it's the same feeling when you're working on yourself, kind of, and you learn
Mhm.
and accomplish a new thing. And so I learned a lot about just how why a lot of clinicians leave clinical work and go into the trades, and vice versa, you know.
Wow, that's an interesting way to put it because you think about that too. Like you said, it's that there's that mental aspect. And, as far as like you're talking about the testing and you're like, boom, 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 boom. And then the hands-on thing. Cause, so many of us, I mean, I can go sometimes, weeks and I'm just, on the computer doing a lot of coordinating, blah, blah, blah work that just is me and my mind on this thing, but
Hmm.
then just use your hands, right? To just put the two together. um to me, it just keeps coming back as this art, this like piece of artwork that you just accomplish, and then you can stand back and go, wow, with everything that I have, the mental, everything I've learned mentally, everything I've done physically, tactile, all of that has made this thing. And that's such a cool aspect of that.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it really takes a lot of skill. Like, tile is not something you can just walk into and be like, okay, you know,
exactly.
I'm doing tile now. If you're doing tile, you're not following CTEF or a really stellar mentor's advice, you're probably
Exactly.
doing it wrong, you know?
Yeah, and then it becomes I've heard these stories throughout, like, it either becomes something you're like, and then you're gonna like pull it all up and redo it, which is expensive. Or,
Mhm.
it's just one of those like live and learn. I've heard, so many stories about that of just like, okay, and we all have those, right?
Right.
Those situations where you have to live and learn and you hit the guardrail really hard or what have you. But yeah, I've learned, and I think the thing too that you mentioned about the history of it, um, I really didn't get either myself, like just the vastness about how it's one of the most pure, pieces of earth and, um, just substance that you can put on your floor, right? And
Right.
that it's non-toxic. It's all the other elements that sometimes that we're getting better and better at refining that can be, but just this thing that's just so ancient, has been around forever, and that people take and make art or just put in their homes. And it's just been a fun journey to me too, to learn about all of that. So
Yeah. That when it is done right, it lasts forever.
Yeah.
I love that about it because I feel like there's so many other and with maintenance, right? With taking care of it,
Sure.
just like
Mm-hmm.
anything else. But I love that as a medium. I love that it works like that, you know?
Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about what your next upcoming project is, and how you like it out there in Utah. By the way, how do you like it out there? We'll start there first.
Yeah, I think that I would not have moved out west unless there were some counterparts to extreme weather. I'm not an extreme weather person. I am like a temperate weather human.
Mm-hmm.
And but here in the winter, dead of winter, there's hot springs everywhere. Like
Oh,
there's
cool.
the 10 beautiful natural and where someone built kind of like a structure around it, hot springs within like 2 hours of me.
Oh, that
So,
sounds so cool.
oh man, soaking in hot water for my body coming back from the hurricane and kind of
Mm.
repairing my relationship with Mother Nature at that point because I was so like, um, you know, that was really helpful for me in my kind of healing process from all of that. And in general, I just love it out here. I love the huge snow-topped mountains in the background, but the like
Mm-hmm.
prairie valley vibe of the rest of the cities. I don't think it did. I couldn't live in like a in Denver or somewhere like that. I couldn't wait in traffic to get to nature. That would bother me. And I think a lot of the places that are really beautiful outdoorsy spots are kind of like that, where they're like just influx of tourists in the winter.
Mm.
And Ogden's pretty small still, so it, you know, it's got a kind of like an Asheville feel to Salt Lake, but it's quieter, which is it's
Uh,
good for my brain. So I'm really
I would
enjoying
like
it
that.
here.
You know,
Hmm.
Asheville's like one of my favorite towns, because I'm in Atlanta. So Asheville's like those 3-hour road trips that I've gone to so many times. I have not been there since that happened. Just haven't had time to get up there. But man, I have friends who work there and live there too. And just the things that they're saying, it's same as you, just that, the PTSD from that has just got to be astounding. But it's still
Totally.
shocking it happened. When that was going down, I was like, are you kidding me? Really? I just couldn't fathom the way that it could just move that far up into the mountains, honestly. So,
Totally. Yeah,
yeah.
it was wild living it too. I mean, we were doing kind of on the ground disaster relief stuff for like 2 months after that. And I
Mm,
think that was a blessing because um, we were doing something with our
yeah.
PTSD. Like my friends who
Getting it
didn't
out of
do,
your body.
yeah, my friends who
Yeah.
didn't help at all were worse off, I think,
Hmm.
emotionally because of the guilt and all of that. But then you had to process kind of everything you saw, all the faces with the
True.
stories of the things, you know. But yeah, coming out here has been great. It's definitely where I need to be. I can tell. I'm a little, I would say, more far out, I think, than the community out here tends to be. So
Oh,
I'm having to be gentle, but I can do that.
so do tell us now about your upcoming new vision as what you're doing
Totally.
next.
Well, and some background to that, like
Hmm.
with my experience working in mental health for almost a decade, I did wilderness therapy for 3.5 years as a direct care staff. So I worked my way up to kind of the highest direct care staff point you could get to, which they call a master instructor in wilderness therapy. And for that, you have to do a project to get that last kind of phase.
Wrong on it.
And
Yeah.
the project I did was actually writing some curriculum for the 10 to 14-year-old group. So it
Hmm.
goes back to the kind of like early mental health days. I love writing curriculum. I love
Mm.
kind of quantifying lived experience. And so when I wasn't working at wilderness therapy anymore, I went back to school. So I got a degree in psychology and neuroscience.
Hmm.
And while I was pursuing that degree, I worked in a lot of different avenues. I was a neurofeedback technician, so I ran like EEG scans and neurofeedback and biofeedback. And that was like one job. I was running backpacking weekend programming for the Willows at Red Oak Recovery. I was doing PRN places. When I was being a neurofeedback specialist, I was working with several other therapeutic boarding schools and treatment centers. And so I got to know the Asheville treatment scene very well and all the different programs. And through that process, I met a man named Matt Nannis, and he was taking guys in recovery out into the woods, and he was asking them some questions, right? Like, what is this teaching you? How's this serving you being out here? And he brought me on as the program manager and then the program director, and I helped him build that from the ground up. So I did, he was really kind of like marketing, networking, etc. And I was like accreditation, curriculum, staff training, staff growth manuals, client and referent relationships. I built the outcome tracking system for all of our grants. Like, all of the program infrastructure came from kind of like my brain and heart and my team's heart. And so through that process, I was really able to take, 4 years of direct care experience and quantify it onto paper. So I learned how to grow a nonprofit doing that. And I did that for 3.5 years. So we worked with court-referred youth and houseless women and veterans with the county. And then I worked in corporate mental health doing running a women's residential treatment center and partial hospitalization program after that. So I've seen treatment from lots of different lenses. And I've been lucky to be mentored by some pretty incredible humans along the way. So when we came out here, and I was in the process of trying to start Sirens of Ceramics, and thankfully so, the Utah standards for becoming a GC and doing work above like $3,000 a project are extremely stringent and cost money, right? There's a business and law class. There's all of these prereqs to even taking your GC licensure. Then after that, there's also establishing your entity, and all of those pieces with the financial situation we were in after the hurricane. It was like, okay, I'm looking at like being able to start Sirens in the fall. What am I doing in the meantime before I start Sirens? And the other thing I'm good at is mental health, right? So I was like, I got a job working for an adolescent residential treatment center out here, working with like level 5 court referred youth. And within 48 hours, I was like, ooh, this is a walking liability case.
Oh, really?
It was bad. It was being run like a no barriers adult halfway house.
Oh, gosh.
But they were level 5 court kids. And I was like, whew, okay. And I brought my concerns forward, and they were not open to my concerns.
Wow.
And I actually got laid off over text message for looking up their accreditation paperwork on the servers, which is
ouch. Well, that's a red flag right there.
It is a red flag.
Yeah.
The story gets crazier because then the clinical team was upset. They wanted me to work there. The HR manager wanted me to work there. I did report the program because the things that I saw were unethical, but I didn't just like report the program and be like, bad. I went through all of their accreditation standards, and I wrote this super long email detailing every standard, how they weren't adhering to it, and the impact that can have on an adolescent's belief system and healing process long term. And I was like, listen, if you don't work with me, fine, but please work with someone that knows what they're doing with this stuff, because you really need to make sure that you're not causing this harm, right?
Yes.
So I got called back in for what I thought was like a consulting meeting. And the owner's like, my wife talked some sense into me. I'm stepping back. You can run the program. You're the executive director now.
What? Wow.
And I was like,
congrats. Oh my,
cool.
Did you accept it?
I did accept it, but I am a sucker for a challenge. I am too.
I hear you, sister. That's great.
I was like, oh man, I already know how I'm going to fix some of these things. You know what I mean? So I
Wow.
didn't sleep for 2 days. I was the most on fire inspiration wise I've been in. I can't even tell you how long. Like I couldn't sleep. I was like making this plan. So I built this like huge document that I called the living blueprint for their program. That
Mm-hmm.
was everything from like the names of the Google Drive folders so that when the auditor looked at the Google Drive, like it was easy to read and in their checklist format, all the way through
Wow.
like the monthly training rollouts, realigning the staff team with a values-based contract, like all of it start to finish. Here's my plan. Here's how your program is like top tier and by the end of the year. And came back in and presented it. And because I reported them, CPS showed up.
Oh boy.
Um, and I handled it head on. I had already told them that I had reported it, right? But some of the staff that were implicated in my report
Mm-hmm.
called DCS to get my report and then rioted, and I was fired again.
Oh my
Which
gosh.
you cannot fire someone for mandatory reporting. Anyways, in the conclusion, I was like, what a roller coaster. Like,
Oh yeah.
again, we're back to what does this mean? Right? Like,
Yes.
why? Why did I get that excited about that? For no reason. Like, what's the point? And
Actually, when you're describing it to me, I'm like, that's phenomenal. I mean, to have that ability to structure all of that out, not everybody can do that. A, B, not everybody does it, but it's so good. But anyway, go ahead. I just
well,
had to
it
say
was
that.
in his text message laying me off again. He said that he would give me all of his contacts and that he thought I should start my own program. And in the
Oh,
moment I was like that's not what you want to hear from the person firing you
yeah,
illegally, you know.
yeah.
But at that point I had all my clinical contacts back east open, like clinical directors, CEOs of programs I've worked for, etc., because I've
Hmm.
been consulting. Like, am I crazy? Is Utah just the wild, wild west of programs? Like, is
Maybe.
this normal? You know, I like to check myself before I wreck myself, you know?
Good practice.
And so when I got back home, I can only describe this moment as kind of like a soul deflate. Like, I was
Mm,
like, okay, CTI seems like I reached a wall. Then I reached a wall with Sirens. Now I'm
mm.
reaching a wall with mental health. Why? You know? And I actually sat down for like a week because my plan was always to run Sirens and then to run a private practice for canceled or exiled male populations who had
Mm.
perpetuated the cycle of sexual violence. And I
Yeah.
wanted them to work in a triad model where they worked with a clinician, a life coach, and a mentor to help them restart their lives, because those men that we're canceling are still alive and they're hiding places, you know? They don't have
Yeah.
anywhere to go from there. And so that was always the plan, was these two businesses. And so I sat down and just started doing what I did with the living blueprint for Joyful Summits, my private
Hmm.
practice. And then kind of weaving in other pieces with Sirens of Ceramics. And I built out what is the project overview and current thing I'm working on, that is a men's residential treatment center and trade school, where men work with a craftsman. Right now we're thinking like metalwork, carpentry, and tile being
Mm.
the three offerings. I'd love to expand from there to electrical work and plumbing and some other factors.
This
But
is such a great idea, Bex.
yeah, but then they would work with a clinician. And so the clinician would be able to loop, what they're coming up against, like when they have a tough day at work or communications funky with the guy they're working with or
Hmm.
whatever pops up, to weave those metaphors back into their clinical work. To try to meet men who don't want to do talk therapy, and really just the thought of talk therapy is like a turn off to even pursuing any type of help, right?
Yeah.
Um, we're doing work with our hands, and we're also helping rebuild after being incarcerated. or
Mhm.
being canceled and losing everything at once because of patterns that were brought to light. Things like that. And so after I built out kind of like a funding map, a program overview, the phase system, all these pieces, my clinical contacts were open, right? So I'm like, what do you guys think about this? And they're all like, in some shape or form, like, this is awesome. Run this. Also, I'm surprised you haven't done this already. Kind of. You know, full body heck yes from everyone who has been doing that, like legends, 30 years of
Wow.
experience in the field. And I was like, you know, I believed in it already, but having that, I would never want to step in this industry without seeking the wisdom of everyone who's done this before me, you know?
Gosh, that's so yes, that makes so much because they can give you so much wisdom, like you're saying, and even like go, here are some pitfalls I've had before,
Right.
stay away from that. But oh yeah, absolutely. Wow.
Totally. So it's in vision building team mode right now. So I have 5 directors sitting on my board of directors that are all incredible. I have like
Hmm.
7 more asks out that I'm working on right now. I just brought on a she's basically a development consultant. She works with female and minority owned nonprofits and helped them scale in the first 6 months.
Hmm.
She's helping me with donors, grants, all these other pieces. And I am applying for 501c3 status this week. So I think goal is we're going to shoot for the moon and say we're going to open early next year. And
Hmm.
it'll probably be closer to fall, winter of next year if I don't shoot for the moon and actually say I'm realistic. But so far, shooting for the moon has opened doors. So we're just gonna keep doing that
Love that.
until we need to move the date. So that's the plan right now.
Exactly, because and as we all know, life always comes in interferes. But having those two ideas in mind for it is just perfect. You've got your flexibility, but you're shooting for the moon, and I love that. That's such a great idea. I
Totally.
love this. I was so curious about what this was going to be, um, but I just love how you are taking those trades and then incorporating into the like you said this hands-on therapy that if especially if they can't express themselves through words or maybe it takes a while or whatever but to help people to actually be rehabilitated so they don't have to end up back somewhere where it could be worse
Right.
for whoever might be on the other end of that or for themselves or for both of them. I love that. So I was, it's funny because like one of the last things I was going to ask you, I was like, how's she going to up her tile game? Since the name of the podcast, that's how you're going to up your tile game right there because you've got this big, beautiful vision.
Yeah.
That's
Well, and
incredible.
I think the goal is going to be that the clients that leave our program are not only paired with a discharge plan where they're connected with long-term therapy resources where they
Mm-hmm.
live, but they're also partnered with an apprenticeship journeyman program in the crowd.
Yeah.
And so I think the way that I hope that our company can level up the tile game in general is that I'm in early convos with CTEF and about making sure we can train our tile pathway in the highest educational standards, right?
Yeah.
And our carpentry pathway to the highest educational standards so that the guys who are leaving our program are capable labor,
Yes.
like they're not having to teach all of those like early frustrating intro details. They're handled. They understand things even if they still got years of honing their skill after that. So the contractors we'll be working with our clients are going to be people with many years of experience in the field who hold CTI certifications for the
Yeah.
tile pathway, et cetera. And so I think that's a way that these guys can restart their lives in a different trade, and have more qualified labor in the field.
Like you just said, people who are really qualified, who are excellently trained, and just can really walk with that sense of pride of like, yeah, I'm aiming at the top. It's like what you said, shoot for the moon, aim for the top of your trade and go for it.
I'm basically collecting brilliant minds like Pokemon right now to try to see where my blind spots are with this vision and try to really suss out in this big vision I have what is going to work on the ground, what isn't going to work on the ground, what needs to be tweaked, and who in the industries I need to partner with to make this as accessible for these men as I can, because it is a 501c3, right? So I'm trying to create a model where it can be affordable for any demographic. So that's what we're in the process with. And I do want to say I'm not partnered with CTEF. I am trying to partner with CTEF. So I just want to be clear about
glad you made that distinction. And I'm glad we're saying that. Yeah.
We're in intro phase right now. Everything that's locked down, I already told you. So it's pretty fresh. So I don't want to make any statements that that are misleading positions, but
you got it.
Working on it, because I do think that their CTI training is really, it's just top tier. It's so
top
great.
notch.
I could figure out, now that I've gone through that, like taking on doing a shower, I know exactly how to find every bit of information and do that like the best possible way. And that's what we need from that kind of curriculum.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Becks, this has been a true pleasure. I'm so excited about this vision. I love how it's combined with all these things that you've done. Just really, hope and pray that you get everything you need to just have this be amazing, because it's really a big, beautiful vision.
Well, thank you. I am backed by some incredible humans right now, and just keep adding more incredible humans to the team. And I do think that we live in a place where a lot of things are possible when you get a bunch of incredible humans behind you. So
you got it. Yeah.
We're gonna make it happen. That's what every post conversation email has all led to another person I should be talking to, or the next book I need to be reading in this process, or getting to speak with you, or whatever the next kind of piece is.
Exactly.
It's all opened another little door with this. So I feel really fortunate. I appreciate you having me on.
You bet. Well, thank you so much for being on, and just look forward to hearing more about this coming up.
Cool.